Good morning. Today we're going to talk about the first successful English colonies in America, those being Jamestown and Plymouth. And we're going to try a new strategy. If you were in class, we would be highlighting and underlining as we read through this, and I would model it for you, and then you would do it on your own. Today, what we're going to do is read the questions first, and then as you read through, I'll highlight the first couple paragraphs. But then after that, you have to do it on your own. You can't highlight, but what you're going to be doing is reading the questions first, and then as you're reading through that paragraph, answer those questions. Then when the edpuzzle questions pop up, you already have the answers. So let's get started. So our questions are, which company was granted a charter and sponsored the first two successful English colonies? The second question is, what was the purpose? All right, let's go. By 1607, Spain had set up successful colonies from St. Augustine in Florida to Lima, Peru. France had trading posts along the St. Lawrence River in what is now Canada. French, English, and Dutch explorers were busy mapping the Atlantic coast, while fishing ships carried tons of American fish back to Europe. But no Europeans took advantage of this situation. Only 3 years after he became King of England, King James I granted a charter to the London Company to explore and settle the Atlantic coastal plain. The purpose of these colonies was to make money for England and to fill up the land so that the Spanish and French could not take it over. The London Company sponsored the first two successful English colonies in America. Jamestown. The first London Company settlement is established in 1607. Oh, wait, stop. Did you forget to read the questions first? Let's read those questions. Who made up the group that settled Jamestown? Why did they come? Did they settle near the coastline? What was the climate and the geography like? What obstacles did they encounter or hardships? What was their relationship like with the Powhatans? How did it change? What were John Smith's expectations of the people who were colonizing? All right, let's go back and read. The first London Company settlement was established in 1607. A group of about 100 men and boys sailed into Chesapeake Bay. These men had come to find gold, but they found none. The colonists built a fort near a wide river and named their colony and the river in honor of King James. Captain John Smith had found a site that would protect colonists from Native Americans and Spaniards. Side note, yes, you remember John Smith from Pocahontas. Unfortunately, this low, marshy site did not actually offer them protections from things like mosquitoes, dirty water, or poor soil, which ultimately caused disease. Unprepared for life in the wilderness, many colonists died during the early months from hunger and disease, and the neighboring Powhatan Indians taught the surviving Jamestown colonists how to hunt, farm, and fish. Pocahontas, the chief's daughter, brought food to the settlers, and John Smith imposed strict discipline on the colonists, telling them they could either work or starve. Now, when Smith returned to England, Jamestown fell apart. The winter of 1609-1610 is called the starving time. Oops, oh no, we forgot to read the question again. Look at the question. How did they make money? That is our big focus here. So let's start over. When Smith returned to England, Jamestown fell apart. The winter of 1609-1610 is called the starving time because only 60 of the original 300 settlers were still alive by May. That means that 240 people died during that winter because they were starving. One of the survivors, John Rolfe, crossed Native American and West Indies tobacco seeds, producing a new variety that pleased the English taste, which means they would buy more of the tobacco from the New World. He is also the one who married Pocahontas. Spoiler, it's not John Smith. The first shipment of this tobacco reached London in 1614, and within a decade is 10 years, it had become Virginia's biggest source of income. So when you read this paragraph, let's think about what was the government like in Jamestown and what happened in 1619 that changed their economy. So the year 1619 is a year of change in Jamestown. The first African slaves are brought from the West Indies to work on plantations, which are also called or a form of large farms. The first boatload of 200 women also lands, enabling colonists to start families. Remember, only men and boys were the first people there. In that same year, colonists elect wealthy men to represent them in their government, which they call the House of Burgesses. This legislature is the first example of representative government in English colonies. Now that we've learned about Jamestown, let's pop on down to Plymouth, or should I say up, because Jamestown is in Virginia and Plymouth is in modern day Massachusetts, which means that it is north, not south. So, 13 years after colonists first landed at Jamestown, oops, we forgot again. Let's go back and read our questions. The Puritans left England because they wanted what type of freedom? So we're going to be thinking about what freedom the Puritans wanted and what religion were the Puritans. All right, 13 years after colonists first landed at Jamestown, a very different group of English colonists landed on Cape Cod. The group we know as Pilgrims were Puritans who left England because they did not agree with the teachings of the official Church of England. At that time, the king required all English citizens to belong to the Anglican Church, known as the Church of England. In America, the Pilgrims hoped to have freedom to practice their own Puritan religion or pure form of the Anglican Church. The London Company gave the Puritans a ship. So, oh, wait, there's our first question. Who sponsored the Puritans? Our second question is, did they just give them the ship and supplies, or were there conditions? Where were the Puritans supposed to land? What governmental document did the Pilgrims write while still on their ship, the Mayflower? And what are two key elements of this document? So, again, who sponsored the Puritans? The London Company gave the Puritans a ship and supplies. And in exchange, the colonists agreed to send crops and animal skins to the company for 7 years. They were supposed to land in Virginia near the Jamestown colony, but instead, storms blew the Mayflower off course. When they realized they were landing far away from any other English colonies, the Pilgrim men signed an agreement called the Mayflower Compact. They all agreed to abide by just and equal laws drafted by leaders of their own choosing. Now, this is something that both of these groups have in common. Both of them have men who are leaders of their own choosing who are going to be in charge. But you'll notice there's a little bit of a difference. We're going to scoot back up. So in Jamestown, they elected wealthy men to represent them in the House of Burgesses. So there was some status attached to that. And on the Mayflower, they just decided it would be people that they chose. Now they're Puritans, so anybody want to bet that they have to be an active member of their church? If you were betting, you were correct. They had to be active members of the church. So now those pilgrims also explored the coastline near Cape Cod. Oh wait, our questions. Lots of questions for a little short paragraph. So, did the Pilgrims settle along the coastline like they did in Jamestown? What was the climate or the geography? What was their relationship like with the Wampanoag? How did it change? According to William Bradford, what did the native or indigenous people teach them? Who is the key Wampanoag that is historically significant? You're looking for a name. And how do they intend to make their money? So let's read this short one and answer those questions. The Pilgrims explored the coastline near Cape Cod. They came upon Native American farms and took corn the native people had stored for the winter. Note it says took, didn't ask for. Polite way of saying stole. The Pilgrims began to build their settlement during the winter, and nearly half of the settlers died during the first winter from a shortage of food and housing. Neighboring Wampanoag Indians taught the Pilgrims how to survive, and according to William Bradford, a Wampanoag named Squanto directed them how to set their corn, where to take fish, and to procure their commodities, and was also their pilot to bring them to unknown places for their profit. By the next fall, the Pilgrims had a plentiful crop of corn and a growing trade based on fur and lumber. Now, of course, there were negative consequences. So for this next little section, what were two negative consequences of exploration for the indigenous native people of North America? Before the Pilgrims arrived on the Atlantic coast, contact with explorers and sailors had already doomed the tribes along the coastline. Smallpox spread like wildfire, wiping out village after village. Some fishing boat captains captured native peoples intending to sell them as slaves. Squanto's entire village was dead by the time he returned to his home after escaping slavery at the hands of an English sea captain. Pocahontas died of disease while in England to meet King James. All right, now that you have finished your edpuzzle, you are going to go into Schoology, and this will be your Wednesday assignment. What you will be doing is completing this chart using those notes. Now you can go back through, listen to the edpuzzle, and write down the answers to the questions because, those questions are the ones on this chart. So if you will fill it in and then submit that to Schoology, it will be listed as a second, your assignment for Wednesday. So you will go in, fill it in, and then submit it. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great evening. Rain's coming. Be safe.